Well, hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. We have a budget battle going on in Washington, and the Democrats have hung their hat on Obamacare, the ACA bill. Now, there is so much waste, fraud, and abuse in this that I don't even know where to begin to start. And where it got really bad was after COVID. So when Democrats are telling you they want to expand these subsidies, these are COVID-era subsidies they're talking about, subsidies that went in 2021. Now, here's the dirty little secret. From 2018 to 2021, you had about 18% of the Obamacare enrollees not making a claim. Maybe they were just healthy. Maybe they didn't know they had it. But what happened after 2021 when they expanded the subsidies and allowed insurance companies to make all kinds of money, insurance brokers to make all kinds of money by enrolling people who may not have even known they were enrolled, maybe are phantom people, maybe don't exist, the number skyrockets to 35% of the enrollees in Obamacare don't ever even make a claim. We pay hundreds of millions of dollars a year paying for a service they never use, if these people even exist. I want to break down some of that today as we bring in the CEO of the wellness company. But before we do that, I do want to tell you about a new product they have called Mars. And specifically for you men out there, trust me, I know about this. The older you get, testosterone levels start to decrease. Your energy levels start to decrease. Your stamina starts to decrease. All of these things become a problem. Maybe you're feeling tired. Mars is a fabulous product that will start to increase your levels in all of these areas, including testosterone. Amazing. So I urge you to check it out. Go to twc.health/Grant, twc.health/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT, 10% off. And, of course, don't forget about the emergency medical kits. If you don't have one of these, you are not prepared for an emergency. Ivermectin in here. All kinds of antibiotics, antiparasitics, antivirals in here, things to keep your family safe. Again, twc.health/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. All right, with that, folks, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, and it's not just me. My good buddy Peter Galuli, the CEO of the wellness company, is with us. Peter, it's great to see you.
Thanks for having me back, Grant.
All right, absolutely. I don't know if you saw this study. It was getting some play about all of the, what I'm calling ghost patients. Maybe we can call them phantom patients. We're coming up on Halloween. This is a problem, and Democrats don't want to talk about it.
Well, I think the biggest thing that we need to acknowledge before we start talking about the ghost patients, Grant, is how wasteful healthcare spending in America is. It is the single biggest line item in our federal budget, which I know is still being duked out right now on Capitol Hill. And for decades, the Democrats' answer to better health in America is spend more money. Just spend more money on healthcare and people will have better health. But in fact, we've seen the opposite happen. We've spent more and more every year, and America has progressively become the least healthy industrialized country in the Western Hemisphere. And that just goes to show you here, the problems and the determinants of our health are not something that the government can address or solve. This happens at a personal and individual level, and it's about the choices we make. So it should be no surprise that we're seeing a new wave of fraud when it comes to healthcare payments, because when you have this much money sloshing around, it's very hard to track where it goes.
You know, one of the things that I think it is, and I do want to talk about the idea of getting people healthy as a method to bring down the cost of healthcare. I think that's totally underestimated. Nobody wants to talk about it other than Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I do think that that's one of his plans. We'll talk about that. But I think what's happened here is people are getting signed up on Obamacare. There's basically no checks and balances left on this, and these brokers are signing them up, and they're getting commissions for signing them up, and then, of course, insurance companies get the premiums, because the way I understand it is these subsidies get paid directly from the government to the insurance companies. They never go through the individual patient. So the patient doesn't even care what it costs. The government's paying it straight out of its pocket.
Yeah, that's the question that everyone is asking is, well, how could this happen? That doesn't make any sense. Well, it actually does. The insurance industry is so incestuous. There's so many different layers and middlemen and brokers and marketing agencies. When it comes to Obamacare specifically, because some or all of it for the bronze plans are covered by the government, you can actually be signed up for a bronze plan and never have a premium payment be triggered to you as a person. So, can you guess what happens next? We see these unscrupulous middlemen and brokers starting to sign people up that would qualify, and the people don't even know they have the care in place, right? So the government just ends up paying all of these premium subsidies to the insurance companies, which then flow down to the brokers as commissions, and everybody's dumb, fat, and happy.
It's really quite amazing. So now we've got this big, we call it a budget battle, but I don't understand. The Democrats are literally just standing in the way of what could be, hey, let's kick the can down the road. We'll fight it out while we continue spending at current levels, which they voted for before. I get tired of saying it over and over again, but I got to make sure people understand that. This is John Thune, leader of the United States Senate for Republicans, talking about some of the problems we face here with health care.
The program doesn't end. These were plus-ups that were done in response to COVID. These were enhancements. And it's a program, Kristen, as I said, that is fraught with waste, fraud, and abuse. There are so many people who don't even know they have coverage because the payments are made directly to the insurance companies. They auto-enroll people. They go out and sign them up so they can get paid. You have a lot of people who don't even know they have coverage. So more than half of the people that have insurance through this program never filed a claim last year. I mean, this is a program where they took the lids off. There's no income limits now. You can make $600,000 a year and qualify for this. So it's a program in desperate need of reform.
So again, this came out of COVID. And well, who was it? It was Ronald Reagan that said, you never turn back a government program. Once the government program's in place, you're never getting rid of it.
Correct. It's not like we've ever seen America have less laws. It's always more laws. And the same thing happens with government agencies and government programs. It's a major problem that we're going to have to contend with sooner rather than later. But Senator Thune is actually 100% correct in his analysis. These were extraordinary measures that were put in place during COVID to a program that, let's face it, the ACA Obamacare was already fraught with waste, but this really took the checks and balances off in an effort to make sure that Americans everywhere had access to care. And we've seen the grifters walk in. Same thing we saw with the PPP loans and all the fraud that happens with those. There was no infrastructure put in place to actually authenticate that the people receiving these services were in need of them. And it's going to drag on forever. And I think the point that you brought up, Grant, which is probably the most important one, frankly, me personally, and I'm sure you probably agree with this, was a little disappointed that Trump didn't take a big bite out of the budget plan. I think he gave the Democrats a gift here. Yeah. He promised to keep the budget level, but that's not good enough for the Democrats, right? They just want more money spent all the time, and that's why the government shut down. It's nothing that the Trump administration did wrong.
They've got about a $1.5 trillion increase in the budget that they're looking for. It's I believe close to $1 trillion in healthcare spending alone in this, which is just amazing to me. And I think what's happening now is they're waiting till the end of the month. I'm told that this is when the insurance companies are going to issue their raise in premiums because these subsidies are not there with the government shutdown. I think they're waiting for the American people to suffer. And so how disingenuous is that? They're going to wait till the boot is on your throat before they do anything about it.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of the game here. They don't have legs to stand on in this fight. So what they're going to do is they're going to hold out and punish more American people, hardworking families who actually need the help. And then they're going to blame that on Donald Trump. It's a really sad state of affairs where we're literally being used as hostages against our own government in negotiation. But that's the Democratic Party's strategy nowadays.
All right. I want to ask you what you think. I have become less and less a fan of Rand Paul, and I think sometimes libertarianism gets in the way. He's an isolationist, almost too far of an isolationist. He gets in the way of President Trump's agenda. I think his good ideas are really good. His bad ideas are really bad. I coined that phrase with Rand Paul's father originally, Ron Paul, that he had some great ideas, but when he had bad ideas, they were really bad. I think he might have a good idea here, all right? I'm going to play this, and I'm really curious as whether you think this is a good idea. Now, he's talking about negotiating, and the old tactic doesn't work in Washington, and clearly it doesn't. We're still in a standoff of somehow getting the leaders. Listen to Rand Paul.
I suggest that President Trump come forward and name 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats in the Senate to an official commission to figure this out over a 1-month period and come back with a solution. But in exchange for that, I think the Democrats need to open the government for a month, and then we need to pay the workers, pay our soldiers, and then I think we could come to a solution. But there has to be something different. It can't be the same old, because just subsidizing insurance raises the cost of insurance, enriches the insurance company, and we're still, behind the 8 ball as far as insurance costs.
We'll see if the president takes your advice. I know that you've had some differences, but you have said you think he's one of the best, if not the best, presidents in your lifetime, and you're willing to work for him.
I still say that.
We'll see if he likes your idea.
So he still says that. Well, that's good news, Rand Paul. But what do you think about this idea that President Trump would appoint 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans to try to hammer out a deal while we open the government?
Well, I think the real referendum that we need to see needs to happen during midterms. And what I'm hoping, Grant, is that this really puts a stain on the Democratic Party because, look, they're not the party in power. So their only move that they can make is to stall and block and harm the American people. They can't enact any legislation. So I think this is a major olive branch by Senator Paul to extend something like this because this gives them at least a seat at the table to help forge the future. I think if Trump even extended this, though, they would say no.
I agree
Frankly,
with you. There's no way they would agree to this. So in some respects, it makes it a moot point because notice what his key was. His key was you open back up the government while this six-member panel negotiate moving forward. There's no way they do that. This is not their plan. Their plan is to stick it to Americans in hopes that somehow we turn on Republicans, which is not happening. I mean, I think the American people, by and large, see this as a Democrat problem.
It absolutely is a Democrat problem because all the Republicans have passed it, right? So that's the thing. And I think Senator Paul brings up another really important point. I mean, these are freebies that are being given away. And you and I both know, you have kids, I have kids. There's a big difference in how a child treats their property if it's something that they earned and worked for versus something that was given to them. And for too long, the Democratic Party has been the party of just giveaways and freebies. And that's why they're so wrought with abuse. And I think Senator Paul is absolutely right. We need to put the accountability back on the corporations that are in charge of delivering health care to Americans and incentivize them to actually do so. Because right now, they're not incentivized to do that at all.
Yeah. No, they're not. And it's a shame because in the end, the American people suffer. Let me play one more clip from you. This is Congressman Burleson. He was on the radio. I like this guy. He's a friend of the Real America's Voice show. Take a listen.
No matter what we do, insurance premiums go up because Obamacare is that awful.
Right.
It's bad.
Right.
And what you're doing is you're throwing good money after bad in order to keep this thing going. It has become an absolute disaster. It's totally upended the healthcare market. In fact, this enhanced subsidy makes it worse because the way it's designed, it's really giving the enhanced subsidies go to people who are in the higher end of the income tax bracket. So it's not helping people in the middle class. It's helping people that are making a lot of money. It's also creating a dynamic where you're having people double dip. So you've got a lot of waste within the system. And so none of that is being addressed. If they want to force us to start talking about extending Obamacare, then a lot of people like me have a lot of ideas on how to actually change Obamacare and return to a free market system.
Wouldn't that be nice to get away from the way Obamacare is now? I think the ultimate goal is they want a, quote, single payer system, which is really a deceptive name because the single payer are the people of America who pay taxes, and only about 50% of us pay taxes in this country. So their single payer system is all of us. But their single payer system is the government. They want socialized medicine. I think Obamacare was a way to get there. And I think in many respects, Peter Galuli, that this is what that's all about.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. Let's face it, Obamacare is socialized medicine. There's no other way to describe it. Now, what they did that's maybe a little bit more unique from other countries is that they socialize medicine, but they also sort of outsource the delivery of the medicine. So they're essentially adding bloat to an already extremely inefficient system. Grant, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what percentage of total healthcare spend in the United States on a given year is spent on preventative care?
No, I don't.
Less than 5. And that's the problem. Less than 5% of all healthcare dollars in the United States today is spent on preventative care. That means that the government is incentivizing Americans, incentivizing hospital insurance companies to go to the hospital, to wait until you're so sick that you need to be checked into an ER or go get, some expensive scans done. And that's really the problem that we're fighting with here. And no matter what we do, as long as we're relying on an insurance system that is paid fundamentally on the hospital visit, they're going to incentivize as much hospital visits as possible. And that's going to only increase rates. And I think that's really the fundamental issue that we're facing here.
So this is why I call it the sick care system, not the healthcare system. Because that's really what it is. They rather have us sick. They make a lot more money with us sick than they do when we're healthy.
That's exactly it. And that's where all the incentives go. So we can't spend our way out of this problem. According to the Democrats, it's just, if more people had coverage, we'd be healthier. No, it's the opposite, right? It's the opposite.
There's a gentleman I'm trying to get on the Real America's Voice show tonight. I saw this clip from him. He is a big proponent of socialized medicine. I am not. But he was also an insurance executive. So the funny part about this guy, Wendell Potter, have you ever heard of him?
No.
So he wrote a book called Deadly Spin, and he calls out the insurance companies for their public relations model that really dupes the American people. And on one side of things, he's like spot on with everything, calling out these insurance companies and how devious and deceitful they are. On the other side, he wants socialist medicine. But he does agree that there's a lot of waste. And I'll play the clip, but I don't understand how he comes to the conclusion that more government spending on this would be less waste. But here was Wendell Potter. He went on with my friend Sarah Gonzalez on the Blaze.
These subsidies go straight to insurance companies, the ones that I used to work for, like Humana and Cigna. Huge amounts of money. In fact, these companies have grown so big in the past few years that United Health Group, which owns them, is now the third largest company in America. And the congressman's right. Health insurance policy in the workplace now is over $25,000. Increasingly, employers are finding it hard to keep offering coverage to their workers. But these companies have been raking in the money. Just last year, the 7 largest insurers pocketed over $71 billion in profits. About $1.5 trillion flowed through them. So I think the congressman's right. And I'm finding more and more interest among Republicans and Democrats to take a look at this industry and how it's been able to pull that off.
All right. So it's interesting as I listened to it again, because I listened to it before I came on with you. And I'm thinking, all right, he raised all these good points. I think what his problem is, he doesn't like the big insurance companies because he'd rather have the federal government be the insurance company. I believe is his model in all of this. Now, I agree with him that they've gotten too big, but they've gotten too big because government's spending too much money to them. That's why they're getting so big, is the government money being flooded to them.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? It's the government money that goes in, the lack of controls. And think about how these insurance companies work. They extend their tentacles all the way down to the employee level. I mean, it's frankly a great business model for them because they're capturing you at a point where you don't have any other options, right, Grant? Like, you go to your employer and you want insurance. It's not like you have 20 different companies to choose from. You get one, right? So if that insurance company is selected, they get customers. And then guess what? Those customers don't even see the bill that they're paying the insurance company. Think about it. You're getting it essentially lifted from your paycheck silently every single week, and it goes directly into the pockets of the insurance company. Rates go up, you don't really notice. Your company might switch insurers, but it's going to be the same issue no matter which insurance company you pick, right? Mm-hmm. They're tied in directly at the hospitals because you need to go see their in-network hospitals. They guarantee themselves a profit with this model. They can't lose.
Yeah. Yeah, you throw in the aspect of throwing a bunch of phantom patients on there who never make claims. Well, now you're in a much better position as well in all of this too. But you make such a great point, because you go to work for a company, you don't really get to choose the plan. They may give you a couple options of what your deductible wants to be, but you don't really get to choose the plan. You have no choice. It is what it is. It comes out of your check. And then they'll give you if you're lucky, you get a 3% raise that year. But guess what? The cost of the health insurance from your end went up 3%, and you're right back. You're right back where you started. I want to come back and talk a little bit about some more on the COVID vaccine. That every day we're getting new information being discovered about just how dangerous these things are, and how the drug companies lied to us about what was in them. But before we do that, I want to tell people about a new product from you guys over at the Wellness Company, and it's called Mars. And so we've all heard the studies that testosterone in young men is drastically decreasing every decade. Well, one major study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found a healthy 22-year-old in 2000 had double the testosterone than in 2025. So if you're in 30s, 40s, or 50s, you might want to listen up. Meet Mars from the Wellness Company, a doctor-formulated nutraceutical designed to restore vitality without synthetic hormones or stimulants. Mars helps men to naturally increase testosterone, enhance circulation, and improve strength, focus, and sexual performance with Tongat Ali, Tribulus, and Horny Goatweed. Now, that's a good name for it. It is, yes, it is really called Horny Goatweed. Also, zinc is in here. This isn't about masculinity. It's about health. Low testosterone affects energy, motivation, fertility, muscle mass, mood, and future generations. If you are looking for a boost, Mars will have you feeling like you're on another planet. Go to twc.health/Grant. Use that promo code GRANT for 10% off plus free shipping. Again, twc.health/Grant. Use that promo code GRANT for 10% off. And it really is a great product, an energy booster. And I'll ask you, how's it going and what's been the response, Peter?
I mean, I'll give you a personal testimonial, Grant. It's been going great. The product's been flying off the shelves. I've been taking it now for 4 months since we first formulated it. It works great. I feel a difference. Look, masculinity is under attack in America, and I'm not just talking about the male cheerleaders in the NFL. To your point, there's been study after study that have showed that American men, on average, as a population, lose 1% of their testosterone levels each year in comparison with a man at the same age the year before, right? So that means you and I have less testosterone than our fathers did at our age, and it repeats on with their fathers. And what's causing this, Grant, right? Obesity, our poor diets, chemicals in the environment, the fact that we live sedentary lifestyles, all these things contribute, and I don't see them going away anytime soon. Now, a lot of people can turn to TRT and the injectable shots, and that's a solution, but it comes with its own risks. And let's face it, it's not the most convenient thing to go seek out. So we built this as a natural alternative. The doctors love it. Patients seem to love it. So we're really happy with the product.
I urge people to try it. And if you're a lady out there watching it and you think your man could use it, I would urge you to get this for them. No prescription needed. You can just order right off the website. Correct, Peter?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. And you guys are coming up with new products every day. It is quite amazing. All right. So I told you about this, another new study that found billions of COVID injections were not the same injections Pfizer used in the original trial. Process 2, as it's been labeled, was only tested on 252 people, not 40,000, and contaminated with plasma, many of these injections, plasma DNA, and all the vials exceeded guidelines for residual DNA by up to 509-fold. That's 500 times the amount acceptable. I will play this clip from one of the gentlemen talking about this study on with the Epic Times.
For the trial, for the 40,000 Pfizer patient trial, they had a very synthetic process for stitching together the sequence of RNA that would go into the little fat bubble and get injected. For the mass manufacturing, the switcheroo was the second process, where instead they took that sequence and put it inside a little ring of DNA, and then the message is the inverse of that sequence. That's called a plasmid, that little ring of DNA. Well, where is that grown? In vats of E. coli bacteria. And then when you want to get the RNA that's produced by that process, then you basically break the cells apart, lyse the cells, and then you're supposed to go through very specific filtration processes and then enzymes, things that break proteins down or build proteins. You're supposed to break down that DNA, and all you should be left with is RNA in a little fat bubble. They, for whatever reason, ended up not having a very clean process and ended up with a bunch of garbage at the end, which included the cell wall and some of the toxins that bacteria makes, in addition to multiple-fold excess regulatory allowed copies of contaminating DNA, which are protected by a fat bubble. Mm-hmm. So that second process, we did a trial on 40,000 people, and at the end on 250 people, we looked at the second process where you're not going to have any statistical signal for harm. And then they rolled that out to billions of people. And so they said, oh, emergency authorized on these 40,000 patients. And then the process they rolled out wasn't really examined.
All right, so a lot of technical talk in there. You know, honestly, from my perspective, I don't even really care about the technical talk. All I care about, you got one process with 40,000. Then they use a second process with 250. And then they say, oh, or you have emergency use, basically to cover up all the things the first process found. And everybody was duped, and this thing is doing so much harm. Am I assessing this correctly?
Yeah, the quality control for these vaccines, Grant, were awful, to say the least. But I think the funny thing is, and you know, if you type into Google, you'll see exactly what I mean, is this theory of hot lots, right? So hot lots refer to the fact that the quality control in these vaccine lots was extremely poor, and that's just what the video was about. And that led to excess amounts of death, and they were clustered around certain vaccine lots. So if you type into Google, they'll say, oh, hot lots is a myth, it doesn't exist. Well, if you go to a website like OpenVAERS or one of the other sort of citizen-driven analysis platforms that actually looks at the government's data and produces their own results, you can see that there are multiple shots that have an excess amount of adverse events and death. And you can actually go in many of these websites and actually enter your own COVID vaccine lot if you still retain that data and see which lot yours came from and how much risk was associated with that lot. So I think there's something here that kind of calls back to a greater cover-up, which, yes, these shots are deadly, but some of these shots are extremely deadly. And there's actually data now to start backing that up that we need to get more acknowledgement of from the manufacturers.
Well, I've heard exactly what you're talking about, that the real problem stemmed from different lots, as you're mentioning, and it wasn't necessarily all of them, but you had certain times and certain lots that really caused problems. Now, I never got the shot, so I don't have one of those vaccine cards. I would imagine everybody that has a vaccine card, if I remember correctly, they were putting the dose and the lot on there, and you're telling me you can check that now.
Yep, there's a lookup. Yeah, if people can go look it up to themselves. The website is openvaers.com, OPENVAERS.com, openvaers.com.
All right, interesting. It's a shame what happened. I know we'll continue to expose that, but we always appreciate when you come on the program and help us out here, and we'll see how this budget battle goes. But as always, Peter Gillooly, thank you, and of course, thank you for your support of this program, the Real America's Voice show, and the support of so many great patriots out there. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Grant, and I hope the budget's resolved next time we talk.
Yeah, let's hope so. I'm not going to bet on it, but heck, you never know. Thank you. All right, folks, just a reminder to all of you, please go to the wellness company, twc.health/Grant. I really do love this Mars product. So, again, check this out. Go there. You need an energy boost, testosterone. And testosterone for men is the key to everything. Quite frankly, for women too, by the way. They can use testosterone. But for men, boy, if you are low in testosterone, you are not going to be a happy camper. Trust me, I've experienced this. And then, of course, there's the emergency medical kits. I showed you the one in the beginning, but this is my favorite. It's the field kit. And they've got everything in here, including an EpiPen in here, which I think every family should have, especially if you got kids coming over to the household. One of those pens. You could literally save a life. So this field kit is awesome. TWC.health/Grant. Use that promo code Grant for 10% off. I appreciate you all watching. We will see you tonight on the Real America's Voice show, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Again, Stinchfield's Army rolls. We'll see you then.